Hello, welcome to Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. This is the session called Hackers Won't Pass about Microsoft 365 ATP. My name is Sergey, and I will be your speaker for the next 50 minutes. Next year, I hope we'll see each other on a conference in Las Vegas in March from 23rd to 25th. But this time we have it virtual in the online version. Thanks to all of our sponsors that you can see on the slide. And because of those sponsors, we have our online conference. A couple of words about myself before I start my session. As I mentioned before, my name is Sergey. I'm an ethical hacker from Russia. I have some certifications like OSCP, MVP, I'm an MCT, and the regional lead for trainers in a Russian-speaking society, and so on. My biggest train is security and the cloud, and the security related to the cloud. What you can expect in my session, I prefer to show live demos, so you will not find a lot of slides on this session. And what is important, this session is going to be about detections and prevention, because we'll talk about products, as I mentioned before, ATP products, but I will not show you how to configure them, because you may find lots of instructions on the internet how to do that. I will show you how to simulate, and I will simulate like a typical attack, and the products, those ATP products, will prevent this attack or detect some of the steps of those attacks. So the goal of this session is to show you how those ATP products, how those services may help you to protect yourself, to protect your company. And before we start our session, just please keep in mind that we have a raffle from our sponsors. We have a raffle, so please follow this link and you'll have a chance to win some prizes. And also, please consider to donate for charity, because it's now very important, especially now, but it's in this hard time. All right, so without being said, let's start. As I mentioned before, this session is going to be a simulation of attack, and then I will show you how to protect your company with ATP. And of course, we have only 15 minutes for everything, so I will make it as short as possible, but I want to show you the necessary steps. And typical attack looks like that. So first of all, attackers, they collect some information about the company. It's called external recon or reconnaissance. And then they compromise the first machine, and then they start to do internal reconnaissance, escalate their privileges, and they try to find admin credentials on this workstation or on some other workstations. And with admin credentials, they may try to compromise the main admin. Of course, it will not be very quick. It's number of steps, and it takes time and number of time in time to make a research. But that's how it looks like. And as you can see here, it may take a week or even more. Now let's take a look on those steps on the real demo, and then in the end of the session, on the second half of the session, you will see how our products, how ATP products detect or prevent those type of attacks. All right, now let's see step number 1, external recon or reconnaissance. And to do that, I'll open up a website called Hunter.io, and it's not a website for hacking. But with this website, you may just put any domain name you want, and it may find all of the email addresses that are available on the web for this domain. Let's try one of our sponsors, for instance, AV Point. Oh, it doesn't work now. Interesting. Let's try from here. Hunter.io. AV Point. Yep. And as you can see here, there are a number of email addresses that are available. If we look at the source, we'll find where this address was used. And if we click here, export in CSV in a paid account, you may export all of those addresses. So what we can do with those addresses, like an example, we can send a phishing email to those addresses. And that's the way how can we easily collect information about the company we want. Of course, the information gathering is not only about addresses, but for this demo, I will have them only. So we gather some information, we made external reconnaissance, we get email addresses. Now we want to compromise the machine. Let's take a look how to do that. Of course, I will not use our sponsors for that. I'll use a demo machine. And on this machine, I have an antivirus, McAfee antivirus. And what is important, if I click here on exclusions, there is no exclusions. So maybe a bit fair. And here I have an email. And if I open this email and I can find an attachment, I can try to download that attachment. What is also important, in parallel, as an attacker, I established a listener. So this listener will catch the connectivity from the user when user opens the document. So let me just click to downloads and open this document. And let's take a look. Yeah, we have a listener. And now let's wait for this document. All right, so now we have a document opened. And it says, if I enable macro, it will give me a discount. Of course, I want to have a discount. Let's click enable the content. And now I have a shell. I have a shell with this box. Let's take a look. If I click calc, and look at that. So calc was open. So I have a shell. I have a remote connectivity with this box. Before I continue, so now I compromise the first machine. But before I continue, I want to have a persistence. So if user close that, or my shell may die because of an activity or for some other reasons, user reboot the workstation and so on. I want to establish the persistence. So let me show you quickly how to do that. If I follow this address, this is a trusted location for Excel, and all the documents that will be that I will put here will be opened automatically with Excel. Let me just put a blank document with this macro to my Excel start. And if I want to get shell back, I just need to wait for user, and when user just opened Excel, it will give me a shell. All right, so let's continue. Now we have first machine compromised, and we must do some internal recon. What is internal recon? Internal recon means that we will gather information inside of the network when we're already in the network. Let me just gather some information from the network. First thing I want to use called Bloodhound. Bloodhound, that's a tool that gathers information from your domain. And if you just look at the search engine about Bloodhound, you'll find what is that. So this tool will just collect information about sessions and about permissions across my network. And what I can do next when I have when I run this Bloodhound, I got some files like CSV or JSON, depends on version. And now what I can do with those CSV files, I can copy them and open my graphical tool called Bloodhound. You may find everything on the web, it's free. And you click upload data, and you upload those CSV files, or JSON, depends on your version. And what will happen next, this Bloodhound tool will learn how many users you have, of course, it's my demo environment, how many computers you have, groups, and so on, and sessions. So it means that which user logged in on which PC. And what I can do next, if I go to queries, I can find the shortest path to domain admins, for instance. That's the most interesting query. And this query may can show me how to become a domain admin when I'm a user. So we will look at that slightly later. Let's gather some more information from this machine. But what I can see now that I'm a JDO user. Let's take a look. Who am I? I'm JDO. And if I look at my permission, who am I with groups? I'm not an admin. I'm not a local admin. And what I can do, I can get if I become an admin, I can get a session of msmith from another machine, and msmith is a member of help desk, and the help desk is an admin to workstation where the main admin logged in. Of course, it's not a good practice. So that's an example what you can find on your network. For the sake of time, I will not follow this. I will do everything on one workstation just for the sake of time. But that's an example how it may look like on the network. Of course, on your real network, it will be much larger because my demo environment. But that's how can we gather some information. Let's find out some more information. The next step, by the way, after the reconnaissance is privilege escalation. Let me collect some information to become admin. To become admin on this workstation, because I'm not. I'm just a standard user. To become admin, I can follow this address, this one, and this called escalation of privileges. And there are a number of ways how to escalate privileges, but to escalate privileges, I need information first. And one of the ways to escalate privileges called incorrect services permissions, incorrect permissions in services. Let me collect information about services on this workstation. What I want to do next, I create a script. Let me just download the script real quick. What is that? Oh, my shell died. No, still working. Ah, I got it. Now let's try to download this script, and let's launch the script really quickly. So let's wait for execution. And while it's executing, let me show you the article about escalation of privileges. So there are a number of ways how to try to become admin. For instance, the simplest one is to try to find passwords in clear text. I will not do it right now because it takes time, but I did it just before the session and you will see the result later on when we'll look at the detections. Like you may try to find clear text passwords, you may try to find vulnerable drivers and so on. I'm looking for information about services and incorrect permissions in services. Let's click there. It advised me do some searches, but they will not work for me. I create my own script to look for services with incorrect permission. But what's an idea behind of this escalation? Services, third-party services, usually work from system permissions, but maybe the service itself has incorrect permissions configured. And in that case, I can use this service. For instance, I can hijack the binary or path to the binary. And in that case, I can run something that is mine on behalf of the system, of the local system. And that may work for me. Let me go back. And what I can see here, this script output, give me a second, please. Sorry, just want to check one small thing. All right, so sorry about that. Let's continue. So what my script did, this script gathered information about services they have, and what I can see here, service and path to the service. I don't see the services from Microsoft because I know they are quite fine. I see services third parties like Google, Chrome, probably it's not vulnerable. McAfee, also not vulnerable. Let's take a look at some other services. Oh, look at that. Unify Video Service from Unify Video Service Unify Video Service Runner from the company Ubiquiti Networks Incorporated. What is that? Why I'm looking at that? Because the binary in program data, and program data, that's the folder where every user can write. So maybe this service, maybe I will have some permissions to this service. Let's take a look. Let's discover more information about this Ubiquiti Unify Video. And if we look at the exploit DB, we'll find that, oh, there's a local privilege escalation for this service. Let me scroll a bit down. And let's take a look. Service installed on C program data Unify Video. Yeah, we know that. With local system permissions, and permissions for user are allow them to write. Good. That's the first problem with this service. Second one, when service start or stop, it tries to launch taskkill.exe. However, this does not exist. So probably it was a temporary file, and this temporary file does not exist anymore. But it's still in the code and tries to launch it. So if I put my taskkill.exe and just stop and start the service or reboot the workstation, that's probably would be a better idea in the real world, then I can get an execution from the system permission. Now let's try to do that. My shell died. Let me show you the persistence. Let me just clear the screen. Establish the listener. So shell died. In that case, we just wait for the user. And let me open up Excel again. So I think I need to close that. Don't save it. Try to remove all of that. I believe I put in the right folder. Oh yeah, this one. And I have shell again. So that's the ways of establish persistence. One of the ways. All right. So now what we want to do, we want to put our taskkill to program data. Program data. Unify Video. Let's take a look that, oh, sorry. Let's take a look, there's no taskkill. And what I want to do next, I want to download my taskkill that I create myself, and that's going to be another shell. Let me just show that on the screen. Let's wait. Hopefully it will not take long. Oh, yeah. So now I have taskkill.exe here. And the next step, I want to establish another listener on a different port. And I just need to stop and start and stop the service. In the real world, I don't have the permissions because I'm a user. I don't have a permission to stop the service. And normally I must reboot the workstation because every user can do that. For the sake of time, I just delegate permission to stop this service because I don't want to wait before this workstation will go, will shut down and then get back. All right, so I stop the service and look at that. I have another shell. and I'm a local system here. Now I can do anything I want on this workstation. Now let's make a shortcut because we are running out of time. I want to also show you the products, not only hacking tools. I will take trainer, this domain admin, and use the hash of this trainer on this workstation, just to make things quicker. So I just open one of the command prompt with trainer, and this hash now in memory. What I can do next, when I have system permissions, I can dump those credentials, all credentials in memory. And I can use the tool called prosdump, this tool from Microsoft, by the way, which is interesting, prosdump. And I can dump the process called LSAS. Let me take that. So first I download this tool. And next, I will dump the process. Here we go. Now what I have, let me show you in GUI, maybe it will be more convenient for you. If I just go to this folder, and go to C, program data, and unify video. And here's the lsas.dmp. And what I can do next with that, I can zip it really quickly, hopefully quickly. And then I can copy it to my workstation and open this zip, this dump file with Mimikatz. Mimikatz is a tool that can decrypt those dumps, and this tool will show me the hashes of all of the users that were logged in before the reboot. It's not that quick as I expected. Process. Anyway, so what we can do next, we can open Mimikatz and find out the hash of this trainer in this dump. If you want to try it, please Google how to do that. So for the sake of time, I will not show it you again. In fact, the copy will be a bit quicker. All right, so when I have a hash, what I want to do, I will add my user to local admins. I will add my user to local admins. Now I can do that because I'm a local system. And now my JDO user, he's a local admin. So let me just disconnect, sign out. Sign out. And when I sign in again, I will become a local admin and I will be in the user context. So that's what I want. I want to have a hash and user context, but with a local admin privileges. And the last step, oh, sorry, I forgot about these steps. So I escalate my privileges and I compromise credentials with Mimikatz. So I got the dump with credentials. And for the sake of time, I already got admin credentials, domain admin credentials. So just for the sake of time. I don't want to repeat all of those steps again on different workstations. And now I want to use those credentials. What I will get in the dump, I will get a hash value like that, hash, password hash, not the password itself, but the password hash. And I want to use this hash just to get the main admin permissions and to do something. And to use this hash, I must use Mimikatz again, but this time Mimikatz must be used on the workstation of a victim. And that's going to be a big deal because we have an antivirus, and that's going to be quite hard to run Mimikatz on the workstation where we have antivirus. Let's try to do that. Okay, so that was removed, and McAfee has to tell me that the virus was stopped. It has to, but it was removed. Now let's try to, so we cannot use Mimikatz, original Mimikatz, but what we can do, we can take our Mimikatz, we can create our own Mimikatz, and use it on this workstation, and we can evade antivirus. My Mimikat's called Ugly Dogs, and it has a bit different icon. Let's try to launch it. Now I have admin permissions, so let's click run. And look at that. It ran Mimikatz for me. And the last step that I want to, before I launch Mimikatz, let me quickly show you that if I try to look at the domain controller, I don't have a permission. I'm a local admin now, but I'm not a domain admin. So let's try to play with Mimikatz a bit. Privilege debug. And now I will use command, quite well known, by the way, pass the hash. So if I put it here, and now I have a new command prompt. Let's try dr dc1 $, and look at that. Now I have access, and now I'm a domain admin, and I can take information I want. Next circle will be about exfiltration of information. All right, I hope it was clear. This demo was clear. It was very quick because this demo has, usually when I show this demo, it takes around 1.5 hours or even more. And now I just fit in 20 minutes. I hope it was informative and clear. And that's a typical attack very, very, very quickly. Of course, the real world is not that quick. Attackers, they need time to investigate, to just make a research, what's going on, what service around, and so on. Of course, I know my infrastructure quite well. So that's why I can do it in 20 minutes. All right, so that was an attack. And the purpose, as I mentioned before, the purpose of that attack was to make noise. And now we can protect our users, and try to protect our users from those attacks with our services and products, ATP products. Let's take a look at the first one. And the first one is Office 365 ATP. This one is a protection of our email, not only email, but primarily from our emails and attachments on those emails from those type of attacks. What will happen when I send the email to the mailbox that protected by Office 365 ATP? It will run the attachment in the hypervisor on the virtual machine and will analyze what's going on when this attachment will run on the workstation. So it will not just check the metadata or content of the file of the document. It will check what will happen after this file will be executed. Let's take a look on that. Let me close this shell. So we finished, I guess you know, we finished with the attacks, and now let's take a look at the protection. The first one will be Office ATP, and I want to simulate an email to Office 365. So I'll go to my Gmail mailbox. We'll take some text. If I put empty email, it may be blocked just because of the text analysis. So I will put a lot of text. And I will also want to take the save today and put here and click send. So I'm waiting for this email in my Outlook. At the same time, I'm establishing the listener. Why I'm waiting? Why establish the listener? Because if this email, if this attachment gives me a shell and hypervisor executes this attachment, maybe it will execute my shell. But I don't have. I don't have anything here. Let's maybe this file's already known, this document's already known. So let me just add some extra spaces. So I'll change the hash for this file, and let's try again. All right. Hopefully, cross your fingers for me. Maybe I did so many times, so it just blocked my address. Who knows? Ah, look at that, finally. So now I have ATP and scan in progress, and let's wait here in my Kali Linux and wait for, maybe we'll get something here. At least we must have a pin from the sandbox, at least. But if I will be really lucky, in case if I'm really lucky, oh, look at that. That's a pin from the sandbox. Oh, look at that. I have a shell with a sandbox. Let's quickly go to the Outlook cache. Go to folder. And look at that. Here's my save today. Now I'm inside of this sandbox. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible to look at the sandbox. It's a Windows 10 machine. And what's happening here? It takes my attachment in the Outlook, as you can see, it's a content of Outlook, and open it in Outlook. It's like a simulation of user that work in Outlook. And now it's just testing in the workstation, inside the workstation, some tools, looking what's going on inside of the workstation. So the document was opened in the Outlook, and then it just click around and look what's going on the workstation. Of course, when the workstation get a shell with some command and control center, it's not a normal behavior, and it will be blocked very soon. So the result will be like that: unsafe attachment blocked. And if I open this, it will show me that save today was blocked. We'll get it very soon, but for the sake of time, I will back to it. But for the sake of time, let's take a look on some other ATP services, and I will go back to this Office ATP. So that's how can we protect our email, our mailbox from malicious attachment. But if attacker already inside, maybe via email, but or maybe using some other techniques, they may continue to do some malicious stuff. And for other attacks, we have different services in ATP services that may help us. First one called Azure ATP, or Azure Advanced Threat Protection. This one will analyze attacks on my Active Directory. Today, I made 2 attacks on my Active Directory. First one was reconnaissance when I used Bloodhound, just in case. This one, when I gather information for this attack, that was detected. So it's called user NMP reconnaissance because it tried to look at those sessions from the domain controller as well, and that was detected because Azure ATP will catch all of the attacks on my domain, not all of the attacks, but number of attacks to my domain controller. So my domain controller was attacked and it found it. Next one was pass the hash or overpass the hash in the Kerberos environment. Let's click on that. Now I can see some details. I can see the trainer was authenticated on this Windows 10 big machine against DC1, but that was a bit suspicious. So it's not normal Kerberos authentication. And if you click here, you may get some more information about this attack and what to do in that case. What if you found this attack in your environment? What to do? And here's the remediation steps and how to prevent it in future. So Azure ATP, once again, will analyze your domain controllers, what's going on with your domain controllers, and will find out typical attacks and also behavior of users that may be not very not very nice. For instance, when users try, they work with the same documents with the same resources again, again, and again, and all of a sudden they start to work with completely some different stuff. It also may be detected. So this is Active Directory, but the tool that will give you the most most number of events is a tool that analyzed the endpoint, because that was an Active Directory. I made a couple of attacks in Active Directory, but let me just click refresh here. But the most number of events were made on the workstation itself. And let's take a look on that. This tool that I'm showing you now, this service that I show you now, called Microsoft Defender ATP, and this one analyzes endpoints. And let's take a look on alerts from today. And I have a number of alerts just from today. Look at that. So let's take a look on them one by one. First of all, let's ignore that. I just tested before. First of all, I mentioned that I made steps to find passwords in files and registry before the session, just for the sake of time, because this search takes time, and I made those searches before the session. And look at that. It says password stealing from files and registry queried for passwords, and also suspicious sequence of exploration activities. It means that those attacks were made in steps. Let's click here. Let's click here. And here I may find my CMD and my queries. So find str for passwords in all files or in TXT files or XML and so on. So that was detected. Let's go back. Let's take a look on registry queries for passwords. Let's click here and look at that. Also some searches in registry. And if you look at the article that I showed you previously, this one, that's the same queries. That's in files, registry. So from this, all of that was detected. Let me go back. So that was before I start to show you demo, just to make more noise. Now let's take a look on my demo. So first was script with suspicious content. What is that? Oh, it says Excel triggered the PowerShell, and PowerShell launched some suspicious script. And then we launched calc, who am I, and so on. As you remember, McAfee was allowed to run this script, this macro, but it was detected by Defender ATP. Then we tried to enumerate SMB sessions. Enumerate SMB sessions on the main controller. That's the same attack that I showed you here, IP and user reconnaissance, but in Azure ATP, that's from the main controller perspective. In Defender ATP, this from the endpoint. So we run this on endpoint. And what we can find here, if I look at the PowerShell here, it says this Bloodhound, that was an attack. So let's get back. Suspicious LDAP query. What is that? LDAP query. That's generally the same, but this one is like that was just another perspective of the same attack. Now let's take a look on PowerShell command line. What is that? Oh, click here. It's still got one hound. Let's skip number of those because they all about the same stuff. Also, Office application runs suspicious command. That's from Office perspective. That's not from PowerShell. That's from Office. Now let's take a look on suspicious LSAS service. That's when we dump credentials. Look at that. Oh, here, pros dump. When we dump credentials with pros dump, that was suspicious. Generally speaking, that's the normal operation. When I'm an admin, I can dump any process, but Defender ATP says it's suspicious. And let's take a look at some other stuff. This is very interesting. Mimikatz detected. It's Mimikatz. That's a different workstation. Let's try. Oh, let's try this one. Oh, look at that! It found ugly dogs. That ugly dogs is the same as Mimikatz. My ugly dogs was not detected by McAfee, but Defender ATP found that my ugly dog is the same. So ugly dogs is the same stuff as Mimikatz, and that was detected. And the last one, we made pass the hash operation and that and modify LSAS process with this attack. All right, so that was a detection of those of my attacks. Let me go back to slides. To this slide. So we went through all of those steps. External recon, it's not possible to detect, to be honest, because it's a passive reconnaissance, but compromised machine, internal reconnaissance, privilege escalation, compromised credentials, domain admin credentials. We didn't go to the second circle because for the sake of time, but I think you got an idea. So when you have a domain admin permissions, you can do anything you want. So we went through all of those attacks, and all of those steps were detected or blocked by Office 365 ATP. By the way, let's take a look what's happened in my Outlook. Yeah, it says blocked. It was blocked. No, not was blocked. So first of all, we blocked malicious attachment with our Office 365 ATP. That was a hypervisor that tests our attachment in the virtual machine, and analyze what's going on after attachment was running. Then we detect attacks on Active Directory, like pass the hash, like information gathering, and also Defender ATP. This is the endpoint protection, and we detect a number of stuff that was performed from the workstation. And when you know it, you can block it. Quite often I have a question about EDR solution. It's like, okay, we detected, but how about to block it? Why doesn't block automatically? Sometimes something may be blocked, but most of the attacks, you may block them manually because attackers, they need time to gather information. They need time to jump from one workstation to another. It was quick only in my demo because it's my demo. But in the real world, you have time. So when you detect something, you may block it straight away, and your company will not have those problems. All right, so now I just want to show you the last slide, and I will look if we have any questions. We are perfectly on time, so we have a couple of extra minutes, so I can see if you have any questions. So first of all, thank you for joining us. I hope it was informative for you, and it was a pleasure for you to be with me on this session. That was very quick, and once again, the full demo of products and the attacks usually takes a couple of hours, maybe around half of the day, to show everything that I showed you here. So that's the reason that I had to use some shortcuts. But I hope you get an idea that those products, ATP products, if you use them, those services, they may help you a lot. If you want to connect me, please find out my profile on LinkedIn. You may just use my first name and last name, or just click on this link. I will upload this PDF after this session.